Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you to the Kortex Media Podcast, where we navigate the fast-paced world of automotive and more. Here today, I have Emily Reichard from Kinetic Metrics. Emily is an accomplished automotive safety and compliance professional with 15 years of experience in the industry. As co-founder of Kinetic Metrics, Emily specializes in helping companies navigate federal motor vehicle safety standards and the regulatory landscape for vehicle manufacturing in the United States. She began her career at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and holds a BS in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Maryland. Emily is recognized for expertise in data analysis and regulatory compliance, supporting both established and emerging companies in the automotive sector. It's great to have you on, Emily.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
I'm glad to have you on. So before we fully jump into it, do you mind just giving the audience a little bit more of an in-depth overview of what you guys do at Kinetic Metrics?
Sure. So we came from, obviously you mentioned our backgrounds from National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So myself and another colleague, his name is Mark Swanson, we kind of drummed up the idea working at DOT that maybe we could leave and kind of, doing very similar regulatory work, but on the other side of the fence, as we always called it. So going from that federal side to the private side, or as some used to say, going to the dark side, depending on what side you're on. So, thinking how we can expand what we do, taking, still focusing on safety, but how can we translate that to the commercial side and assist manufacturers in building safe cars here, and kind of able to do that without all the red tape of being a federal employee. Obviously, you're a little bit more restricted when you're on the federal side, and for me, I sort of wanted to break free from those restraints and be able to assist companies in understanding how compliance works in the United States, whether they're a domestic company or not. You would think even if you are a domestic company, you have a full grasp of it, but when you really start digging into what it takes to manufacture a vehicle in general, there's so many facets that have to be accounted for. And so it's kind of helping them wrangle all those different pieces that they have to put together to make this giant puzzle that is the car itself. So we're still, we work with manufacturers themselves, and then in sort of building the business and just, knowing that the industry ebbs and flows. We've also gotten into jumping back over the fence into federal contracting as well, and assisting with just like the broader transportation space in that realm. And even now the broader safety space, we're actually doing a little bit of work that falls outside of transportation, but still sort of in that consumer safety realm. So, a lot of pivoting happening because of just being a small business. You sort of have to figure out how you can mold yourself into these different spaces.
No, for sure. That's amazing. And you're probably gaining a hell of a lot of knowledge.
I've been able to travel to different countries. Like, I think the breadth of what I've been able to accomplish since like stepping outside of that has been really awesome. So
no, that's super exciting. So let's jump back a little bit into your background. Can you share a little bit about your journey into the automotive industry and kind of what initially drew you to the safety and compliance?
So even before I was at NHTSA, so I actually was an intern at NHTSA in 2009, I believe. I did a summer internship just to understand, because before I even dove into that, I actually did an internship the previous summer while I was still at the university, or about to transfer to the University of Maryland, and I worked for Mack Trucks in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So very close to where I grew up. My hometown is sort of outside of that. So Mack Trucks is sort of a very common thing in our area. Yeah. So I worked as a product modification engineer for them. And mainly what that is just what they deemed as kind of low cost, which I believe was anything that would cost them under $1 million. But just like changes they would make to the heavy trucks for their fleet customers. So these are like small projects to them. And working in that realm and just kind of seeing, what was nice about that is we were in the test center. So I got to really see us in the office space, but also you got to walk out to the shop see them, fabricate a part, put it on the truck, and then take it out to the test track. So that was a really cool experience for me to look into that. And then, I had heard of the term NHTSA when I was there, but I didn't fully grasp it. And then going to school in Maryland, being in that general Washington, D.C. area and all the, federal space that was there at that time, I saw the opportunity to get an internship at NHTSA, and I was like, what is this agency? And I had never really knew there was this entire organization that regulated vehicles. So I interviewed, I got it, and then I got to basically really dip my toes into the safety space. And I really liked working in that, as much as it was cool to mess around with all the parts and, what we call the sexy side of engineering for vehicles. I sort of stayed into the less cool side of safety because it just spoke to me more. I felt like I could get, it felt like I was doing something really impactful by working in the safety space. So that was really where I learned more about NHTSA. So once I finished school the next year, I really wanted to work for that agency. So I, hit up all my contacts, got in there as a contractor at first, working in the Office of Vehicle Safety Compliance, so working on safety standards themselves, specifically with school buses. I always tend to get pulled back into some form of heavy vehicles, truck and bus. Seems to ever since I did that stint at Mac, it seems to pull me back in. It's like a magnet.
Well, you have a good background in it, so it makes sense.
Right? And then I transitioned to a federal employee about less than a year into it, and then I worked for the Office of Defects Investigation. And that was kind of them broadening my scope of looking at all safety-related defects. I did focus a lot more on newer technology at the time, so I got kind of drawn into electric vehicles. One of my first big investigations was the Chevy Volt fire. And that was when it was, I think, side impacted, and it later had a latent battery fire. So then I really got to learn all about lithium-ion batteries, especially when, back in the early 2010s, 2011s, that was still kind of new technology at the time. Mm-hmm. But it's been exciting to see how it's really exponentially grown upwards, and just all the things that are available with that. So yeah, that kind of was what sparked all my interest in that, and then continuously growing in that safety space.
That's amazing. That electric vehicle. So what year was that you started looking at the Volt?
That was 2011, late 2011 into 2012 was when that invested.
You never heard about electric vehicles then, so that would have been huge for you guys as an agency like that. Can you speak a little bit about that? What's changed in electric vehicles that isn't gonna cause these, so to say, fires and issues? Yeah,
I mean, I still feel like there's a little bit of fear there, right? So obviously when these battery fires happen, they seem to be a little bit more epic than what you would see in an ICE, an internal combustion engine vehicle. Yeah. Although when you really look at the numbers and drill it down, I'm always telling people, I'm they're not happening any more frequently than your standard vehicle fire. It's just that when they do happen, they are just a little bit more, the proportions of them, but they've done so much space, National, the National Fire Protection Agency, NFPA. They've done a lot in working with EMS and the firefighters and understanding how that works and sort of navigating. So there's so much that's been done just to help mitigate a lot of the, the bigness of those fires that you see. So they've been doing a lot in that space, and it's nice to see that. I think the fear is a little bit less in that space, and some of it, now I'm seeing more people adopt them. I remember interacting with Tesla when I would probably still consider them a toddler company, they were so new, and now I can't drive anywhere without seeing at least over a dozen of them on any small trip that I take. So it's crazy to see how the market has grown, and I think it's good. But I support a very mixed fleet of vehicles. I think there's opportunities to have a bunch of different, fuel types out on the road today. So,
for sure. No, that's a good point. Maybe we'll dive into that a little bit later. the fuel types of vehicles, because that's a good topic. But can you share a little bit more about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture? And can you tell us kind of what a typical day looks like for you?
Oh boy. Well, being a business owner, it's I wear a lot of hats. I feel like, my day usually starts with a good cup of coffee and running through all the emails like everyone else does. But on any given day, I have my client work, so it could be answering a lot of, depending on what their needs are for the day, answering a lot of kind of ad hoc questions about, hey, I'm working on, I get a lot of questions about headlights or lighting in general.
Yeah.
FMVSS 108 is a killer standard for a lot of clients. It's probably one of the longest ones and one of the more complicated ones. So my day can start with figuring out questions that they have, maybe some type of new lighting they want to use, and they're trying to figure out, does this new design fit into the way the standard is written? So that's kind of my bread and butter, and just like really being able to quickly answer those questions about the safety standards. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's where that's like my heart and soul there, is like being able to navigate that in a really quick and easy manner for them. But then I also have to do a lot of like market research, like what else is on the horizon. I'm constantly looking at, how do I get new clients, new projects? Are there proposals that are being put out there? And then, obviously on the back end, figuring out, I have to be an accountant some days. So it's like I'm an accountant, I'm a salesperson, and then I'm doing just general business management, making sure everything's in line, and then I'm also doing the engineering and all of that good stuff. So like what's exciting about it is on any given day, I'm not doing the same. The only thing that's probably routine of my day is the morning coffee and email check, and then everything else is kind of like whatever the universe provides is what I'm gonna work on for the day.
get a big aspect of experience that way.
Exactly. So very much a jack of all trades is what happens with that.
And it's just you and your partner? You don't have any further employees?
Yeah, no permanent employees, so it's still just been the two of us. But we'll pick up projects where maybe other colleagues of ours that were in the agency that are now out on their own, or other people we know in different spheres, we'll work with them as other contractors. So it's kind of like we do a lot of business to business, really small business to business transactions. I'm working on a project now where one of my actual good friends, he went off on his own. He's doing a lot more like dashboard development and data development online, even like building online applications. So with some of the new projects we've been working on, we've been sort of picking his brain and working with him on, hey, we want to analyze all this information. You can build all these really cool dashboards for it. So we've worked with him and building up some of these products as well. So it's fun too to be able to work with a bunch of different types of people.
For sure. No, that's awesome. And that being in the industry that you're working with plenty of different companies. Like you're working with automotive manufacturers, but automotive as a whole is a huge industry.
Yeah.
And there's little niches in and out of there. So you get to see big parts of the industry. And you touched on you had to keep up with the industry trends. What are some of those industry trends that you're seeing in the automotive safety compliance right now that are really changing, or what have you been seeing recently?
Yeah, so right now I have a few clients that are in the autonomous space, and that's kind of really the biggest, AVs are sort of lighting up. So, yeah. And I even, as part of a member of SAE International, I've been again pulled into the truck and bus automation committee, which that's my little mini plug for them. It's a great group, but just kind of navigating that autonomous space, because it's very interesting to me, because as you know, the standards themselves were written back in the 70s, so that they didn't have a full grasp. I mean, even with EVs, we noticed hey, there's not a lot of standards around this. And, back when we were looking at it in 2011, all of a sudden all this development happened, to kind of catch up and build some standards around those types of vehicles. And now I'm kind of seeing the same thing with AVs and trying to navigate that space with the manufacturers, because obviously, they all want to build something very safe, but it's hard when you have this thing and you have this piece and it doesn't fit into a specific part of that puzzle, and you're like, I want to make this work, but like I can't, force this in here. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to help them navigate how, what are the pathways, which I know DOT just announced that they're trying to kind of expand those. I think they just announced it like on Friday. They put out some a new order that they're gonna try to expand the capabilities of AVs and allow a pathway for them to really operate. Because as it stands, there was really no clear pathway besides getting an exemption to have this like purpose-built autonomous vehicle. The only other way to do it was kind of what we've been doing now with like your Waymos and your Cruises, is them like sort of just retrofitting it in afterwards. So you have this like fully compliant vehicle, and then you're just like adding this on. But there's really been no clear pathway to sort of like integrate that and send it out. But we're working on that, and I find that really exciting because it's kind of using what I already know about the FMVSS and like figuring out, all right, how do these two pieces go together, and how can we still create safe vehicles while also, allowing this new technology. So I've been really diving into that space, and it's been fun because I didn't know very much about AVs until like the last like couple of years. So still a learning process for me too.
Well, with the industry right now, like everything's changing, from even business aspect with AI, and like everything is, especially this year, 2025 has been the year that business change in general has been coming through. And then now with companies, so autonomous vehicle, I'm assuming you mean by like no driver.
Yeah, the driverless. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so many words. I laugh because one of the biggest things we've been wrangling with is the taxonomy. So like, here we'll use the term autonomous driving system, but I notice a lot of Europeans like self-driving systems. So you have like the SDS versus ADS, and I'm like, they're the same, but then sometimes people are like, well, the definitions are different, and I was like, so the importance of taxonomy is definitely going to come into play in the next couple of years, and I know that there's been a lot of work around kind of generating like similar terminology. Although now I think the latest has been, there's been so many work streams in that space. It's like, okay, now we've built all these, but are they all like marrying with each other? Now we probably have to go back and be like, do these actually make sense together? Or are we kind of creating conflicting ideas?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, that's, have they came out with, so I know, well, it's been the talk for years that, Tesla's going to make a self-driving car. And they actually have released something, because you can get you can buy like a certain contract that it can drive autonomously. Is that something that's been released through the vehicle safety standards as well?
I mean, I haven't, well, they don't.
I guess it kind of has to be, but.
Yeah, it's not like explicit in the standard. So like right now, like even with that, the idea is like you can turn this. I've even seen, one of the things I see on TV all the time now is I think Ford's version of it, where it's like their, kind of super cruise control, and I'm sure there's a kitschier name for it, and it's escaping me right now what they're. But that was the other thing we learned with taxonomy. I'm like, every car company is calling that system a different name, even though it's sort of relating back to the same thing. Mm-hmm. So you have like some of the extra, like, your adaptive cruise controls, which falls somewhat in that realm, but I think like right now the assumption is that the driver is still in control, and that I'm still sitting in front of the wheel. I'm cognizant of what's happening. I just don't have to give any inputs. The car's doing it itself, but if a issue arises, I'm still there to react in an appropriate manner. Mm-hmm. What'll be interesting to see is I've been working with some companies that are trying to do the fully, so we have all these levels, something more fully automated where there is no driver, there isn't even like an operator in the front, and it's just really the vehicle and you. And I mean, we've seen some of that obviously I think my business partner just took one of the Waymos in Arizona,
No
He
way.
said it was pretty cool. Like, so you just get in this little taxi and it takes you where you need to go. So
That's crazy. I saw videos online of China. They have flying taxis now. Like,
I don't know if we're ready for that.
no, I saw a video of it and I'm like, this is crazy. But like, I don't know what's with 2025, but since the start of this year, there's been so many different impacts on every single industry with with the emerging technologies, we kind of touched on it. And are they really jumping into safety standards now, or are they kind of
I think
are they
so.
resetting the book, or are they gonna just?
I mean, I think we're gonna have to create. I don't know if I want to say new standards. I think there's ways for it to fit into the ones that already exist. But I do think we'll need like kind of like I think like an onion, like we need layers to it, right? Yeah. So I think in addition to just the general, because the FMVSSs themselves are just like your base layer. Like, so even I see it all the time with my clients and their development, you have that as the base level. So it's like they're really minimum performance requirements. So like that falls here, and then you have OEMs like they have their own, and we're trying to like be above that. And I think that's the premise of it, right? Like they're trying to give you, all right, this is your baseline, but I think the expectation is that they're always trying to you're trying to jump over that. You're not just wanting to meet the minimum. And it is nice to see a lot of car companies do really think that way. Obviously they're trying to make a profit. There's things that get, cut down, but at the end of the day, they're trying to be above and beyond in terms of safety, which is really a good thing to see. I think cars are probably at their safest point right now. Like thinking of like what they used to be like and where we're at now. I'm like, cars couldn't be any safer. The problem now, I think more is a behavioral thing, right? I think the user is becoming more the problem than the vehicle itself. So it's like now we have a new layer to deal with, which is another interesting area of like how do we address those behavioral issues of people driving and being on their phones, which might be like my biggest pet peeve of all time when I'm on the road. I'm like, what is this person doing? And then I look over and they're FaceTiming, and I was like, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I think that's where some of those autonomous technologies can help, or even the adaptive, those automated driving assisted technologies, where it's helping the driver be like, hey, you're not paying attention the way you should be. Get off the phone. I wish there was a better way to just like force it to not work. But I know everyone would flip
once you get in the car, once you get in the car, it just gets rid of all your signal. You can't go on the phone. That would be
right. Like cool. You can maybe have it connected inside, but even that I like struggle with. Where I'm like, well, how much are you paying attention when you're like talking on the phone the whole time?
Yeah.
There's levels to that too.
For sure.
So,
do you think the biggest push is going? Well, obviously it is self-driving or autonomous cars. How soon do you think we're going to start seeing those like on the road driving?
Oh boy. It's going to be little bits and pieces. Like I said, even with like fuel technology, I think in a very similar fashion, with having alternative fuels, with having all these we're going to always have these very mixed fleets. People hold on to their cars for a really long time. I mean, my car is 15 years old and it has absolutely no technology in it whatsoever because it's from 2010.
What is it? And
it was like a base model vehicle. So I'm like, I have none of the nice new technologies, but it's very expensive to have cars. And I just, and I'm now in Philadelphia, I'm in downtown Philly. I'm like, I'm not trying to have a really nice car with no garage. So
for sure,
I'm not getting a new car anytime soon. So like you're gonna constantly like I don't see it flipping. Like I think that's everyone's fear is that all of a sudden it's just like that. All these vehicles will be here, and I'm like, think about that in context. Like no one's gonna buy. Like it's gonna have to be this mixed fleet, and then we'll see what works, maybe what doesn't work, and I think it's gonna be very much like place to place. One of the interesting things about the US is you just have so many different types of regions, and I don't think one I can't ever foresee it being just like a one size fits all type of country that we're in. I mean, what they need in New York City is going to be, even in the same state, what they need in New York City is going to be very different than what they need in like upstate New York or in like more rural parts. Like, so all these different applications are going to be also dependent on what the community there is in need of. So like even with AVs, I think, maybe launching them in areas with like older populations where maybe you don't want, people are less likely to want to drive, they're getting older, they're like, I don't want to do this anymore, or maybe it's potentially unsafe for them to still be driving. It's, I have a 90-year-old grandfather who still wants to drive, and I was like, Grandpa, I don't think you should be driving anymore. Options for them are going to be different than in younger communities where you have a lot of people that are like, I'm able to and I want to drive. So having all those different applications, I think, is going to be still really important moving forward.
So on to another application, the engine side of things. So we have EV, we have hybrids, we have combustion engines. Do you think we're going to be, I know there's a huge push for EV, but do you think that's going to stay pushing towards EV, or are we going to see more hybrid?
I think hybrid is going to be the immediate way to go. Like I'm even driving still an ICE, and I mean I get great gas mileage. It's a very tiny. I have like a tiny little Kia Soul. Like it gets like great gas mileage. Like I barely drive it, so I'm like probably filling up my tank like once a month. Like it's very few and far between. So like I don't have very. It's not very accessible to me to get to a vehicle charger. I'm in a townhouse. There's no like I'm parking on the street. There's really no way for me to like viably plug in. I'd have to go find like a place to charge and come back. So like I think also until some more of that infrastructure is built, and again it might be dependent on the area. It might not be viable to have that in certain areas. So we have to be cognizant of like, well, maybe it's better to have more of this hybrid technology. Like I could see definitely if I were to have to get another vehicle, I would probably go that route because I could still have something accessible that way, but I couldn't have like a fully plug-in electric vehicle like where I'm located now. It would just not be like feasible for me. I would want like something hybrid because I'm still getting that really good gas mileage. I'm utilizing this new technology, but I need to do what fits within the place that I'm in.
For sure. And yeah, that's a great point. It's just, I think it's going to be with moderation. It's going to depend on what happens here in the next few years. Like, there's going to be, I drive a 20-year-old car.
Oh, wow. You're beating me.
It's an old Honda Civic, and it's perfect. It's great. It's exactly what I need. Like, and we live in a very rural area, so say if I wanted a charger, it's hard for me to find one.
Yeah.
Like I live on a farm, and I'd have to get my own charger, which they're not cheap to begin with, and I don't see many electric vehicles in our area either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And with being in Canada, you park your car outside overnight, especially the Tesla, because they have the push button door handles. If you your door handle might get frozen. Like there's but I don't think in the cold weather,
mm-hmm.
with the batteries, I don't think, especially with your situation as well, with you're not driving very often, so the battery will be sitting, which the battery might go bad a lot faster if it's sitting instead of getting used like it should, where it gets used and then charged, because that's how batteries should be used. So I think the next few years are kind of going to scope it out, but I think hybrid's going to be the way to go, just because you get both the best of both worlds
there. Yeah,
for sure. And the economy in hybrid is crazy. Like you can drive for a super long amount of time, and then all you have to do is refuel, and then your combustion engine charges the hybrid engine, and then you go again. Like it's super cool how it works.
I was mind blown. I actually just drove with a couple of friends, and he has a newer Kia that's a hybrid, and we drove from Philly to Richmond, Virginia. So it's like a good 4 to 5 hour drive, and I think we only filled up. He filled up once on the way down, even though he was like, I'm already halfway, but I might as well just since it's cheap here, I'll fill up. Yeah. And then we only had to fill up one more, another, so we probably only used one tank of gas for that full round trip. And I was like, wow, that was really, really good. Like mine would not be. I would probably have to fill up twice for that one, but like it was pretty remarkable how good like of mileage it got. I was like, oh wow, this is definitely well worth it for you.
And if you say you went on or you took an EV on a trip like that, you're driving, say a couple hours through 4 hours, you got to wait and charge. You can't just fill up and go again. So I think hybrids definitely. I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of in the future. I think they're still going to make all three, I think, and you can kind of pick your options.
Yeah. Because again, if you're in an area where you have a charger, it's really accessible for you to. Because I think he was also saying there's like a fully EV mode, but he's like it's really only good for like very short trips. But he's like it's perfect for me because I can go out, do my things, come back, do it fully on EV. And I'm back home and I can just plug it back in and then I'm good to go again for my short trip. So like it really works well with him. And then the hybrid is great for those longer distances where you can sort of mix and match what he's using and not using.
Oh, it's really cool technology that they're implementing into combustion engines.
Yeah.
It's going to make a huge impact of the future. So this is a little bit more about the company. What aspects of your work or your company's approach have been especially successful recently? Like what's kind of been working well with working with manufacturers, maybe working more with shops? I know you went through a big move, but what's kind of been working really great for you guys?
Yeah. Well, and the move was just, I realized I can work anywhere. And it was a little bit more driven by my fiance and myself kind of making a decision about where the both of us could still work and operate in a place that was good for us. Because he's in like theater and film. So we were like, let's go closer to like New York and some of that stuff. So this was like sort of the good like in-between spot for both of us.
Perfect.
Right? So what's been working? It's been such an interesting journey. Like even, I don't know, maybe it'll be good if I like start all the way back in the beginning when we started, because like a huge thing we've learned through like the course of doing this is what I call we've constantly had to like pivot. So even when we left the agency, we had this big idea that we would do, we would work with companies on their early warning reporting, which is like one of the requirements that they have to send their information into NHTSA. And we got a client and we were working with them on that, but like everyone else was like, well, we have a system in place. It seemed to be really falling flat. And we kind of had a panic moment of like, oh crap, like did we leave this agency and we did the wrong thing, like this isn't working. And then someone else found us, which thank God for my website, because apparently that's been the best thing I've ever made since we started, because the majority of people who find us for our expertise, I ask them every time, I'm like, well, how'd you discover me or find us? And almost 95% of the time it's the website, which I was like, it's the simplest thing I did in the beginning, and it seems to still be the like best thing that we did. So it's kind of my old faithful in terms of getting new work. But we pivoted basically. We started working with a testing company. I don't know if I want to, well, I'll NDA it, but basically a big testing facility.
Yeah.
I won't name drop anyone today. I don't feel like I should do that. But so we worked with a bigger test company, and in that it kind of, even though I guess we were considered a consultant to them, I really view it as a partnership. And I think that's been one of the biggest things for us, is learning how to build all these different partnerships with companies. So even though some of them I'll call a client, I really do view it as like we're working together. It's a collaboration, right? So I think that approach has helped us a lot, especially in like even getting into the door with people and kind of being like, I'm not going to dictate what you should do. It's more about like, what do you want to do? And like, let's figure out how we can move forward with that. Yeah. So even with the testing company, I mean, that's been one of our longest clients or partnerships. We've been working with them almost since like inception of the business. So I think it's been like 8 or 9 years going at this point. We just turned 10, like we're about to turn 10 this year. And we've been working with them probably for like the last 9 years. And we just found a new project within the previous year of testing e-bikes for the government. So Consumer Product Safety Commission put a contract out there to test electric bicycles. So that was one of those pivots where I was like, well, this is transportation related. And if anything, I'm an avid cyclist. So I was like, I'm really intrigued by all of this. I'm like, it's interacting on the road with vehicles. And so we asked the testing facility, we were like, hey, I know you guys are typically crashing cars, but like, would you think the facility would be able to do this? And they're like, this is really cool. Like, of course. So we went after it together. We created this proposal and we won it. And it was a really fun, like, learning, like, project to work on, getting all these bikes, testing them out, seeing what the difference is between a standard bicycle and the electric bicycles. Because I don't know if Canada's having the same influx of them, but I see them everywhere, especially in Philly. Like, I'm like, oh, that's an e-bike. So people were like, how can you tell? And I'm like, well, one, the speed and the effort you see the person, like...
half time you don't even see them pedaling. They're just cruising
around. How are they going so fast and not pedaling? And just, like, learning about how there's, like, there's throttle-based now, where it's just, like, a push of a button, and then you still have a lot of the pedal assist. And it was just, like, really learning about all the different types of bikes that there are now. And that market has just, like, completely blown up. Like, it's incredible to me to see all the different e-bikes that are out there. Like, the options are, like, limitless at this point.
For sure, yeah, it's a huge
I'd say, like, building partnerships has been one of our biggest things, is, like, finding those other, again, business to business, finding those other small business partners to work with, and then, like, figuring out ways we can, like, go after things together has been the biggest thing for us, especially because it's just the two of us. So, we have to,
sure.
I can't compete against the Lockheed Martins. I have to find really interesting ways to navigate that.
No, but it gives you great experience in the market too. So say you're working with one company here, and further down the line you have another chance to work with a similar company. You already have experience with that company. So it works great in your way, really. Because you're getting a whole broad... What am I trying to say? You're getting a broad aspect of work. You're in a broad range.
Yes. So now I can add to my list, like, all right, if anyone needs help with, like, any more stuff with electric bicycles, I got
you.
I've learned so much about
You're the lady. You're the girl. So we'll move on to kind of the goals for the company. So where do you guys want to be in the next 6 to 12 months from now?
Ooh. Oh, this is like short-term goal. Good. I was like, oh boy.
Just a little short-term.
I mean, I know the federal landscape right now, everyone's like, oh God, what's going to happen? I would still like to continue to grow that, because we didn't really, I like dipped my toes into federal contracting in about like 2018, but it really took us until about 2020 to like really get a grasp of because it's like learning a whole new language to like understand how to work with the request for proposals, what are all the different, what's called contract vehicles. Like, I really had to dive into, like, understanding how that space works, because it's very different from the commercial side. Commercial side, it's just, like, sales pitch, quote, okay, you're in or you're not in. Whereas, like, you don't really do that in the federal, like, you kind of do it in the federal space, but it's not quite that simplistic. There's a lot more, red tape to go through and, avenues. So it's been also navigating how that's going to work for us. So I would like to continue to build into that space. We've really been turning our wheels now, like getting the wheels moving with, we're on what's called a GSA schedule. And that was what I got us on 2020. And at first it was like, it took us a bit. We got one contract. We got another. Now we just got our third. So if I can keep that momentum, like trying to keep all that momentum going on the federal side is going to be one of my like near-term goals. I want to keep those wheels spinning, get into that. Obviously, I would love to continue on the commercial side, but ebbing and flowing with how industry is going, I think I would like to focus on some of the broader transportation stuff versus like some of the other things we've been doing. Like, we can always fall back on all of that expertise, but now I'm like, all right, what else can I grow into? Because I also got my road safety professional certificate this past year, and I've yet to use it. So it's also like finding ways I can apply some of that RSP knowledge that I just obtained, which is really looking at, broader transportation, looking at design of roadways. So one of the things I would really like us to get into as well is how can I start working in just like transportation planning and how we can fit into that. Even if I do it locally here in like Philly, I'm like, all right, guys, I see some intersections that could use some work. Like, what are we doing in that space? So I think growing that and growing some of the like federal, whether it be federal or state, but maybe looking at some of those like smaller contracts and getting into that. I would like to grow that side a little bit more.
For sure. Especially because you don't hear about, like, you have the certain companies that do the roads, but you don't hear any chat about how the roads are getting done or...
Yeah, and
what
just
else?
like,
what else would be under the federal umbrella? Like, it'd be the roads. It'd be... What else would be under the federal umbrella?
Oh, for like contract wise?
For like, what would you guys get for jobs?
Well, let's see. What else would I want in that space? I mean, I'm kind of like, as much as I love cars, sometimes I'm like the car person that hates cars.
Yeah.
Like, you have a love-hate with it. I think, it's still very much one of the, like, as safe as they are, it's still, like, one of the more unsafe things we do every day. But again, like I was saying, like some of that, I was like, cars themselves as the package are very safe, but now it's all the other things that, it's the user, it's the human. So it's like these behavioral things we're doing, but also, could it also be the roadways themselves? They're getting very old. Having these monster potholes in the street can become a new detriment, or, is this intersection making sense? One of the cool things I was learning about in getting my road safety professional is like understanding. This is probably, some people are going to like potentially laugh at this, be like, oh, I knew that forever ago. But I didn't know that one of the reasons they'll put like a lot of trees on the sides of like specific highways is it's a visual cue for people, in that they'll realize like, oh, I'm going really fast because they're seeing how quickly they're going past those tree lines. It's giving you this like visual cue of like, oh, I'm going fast because everything's blurring, right? And I never thought like, oh, there's an actual design reason why they're putting certain things on the road just basically as visual cues for you of like, oh, it's going to make you realize you're going faster, or give you, some of them do it as a visual trick, which I don't know if I should tell people that it's a trick, but it is. It's making them assume they're going faster than they are. So it's like that visual check of like, oh man, these signs are getting like, I feel like I'm flying past these. Maybe I should like slow myself down.
Yeah. And
that was really interesting to learn that there are like mechanisms or like things you can do in terms of the design to basically cue the human brain to be like, oh, I should be cognizant of my speed here. And I thought that was really neat. I was like, I never knew that that's probably why they put trees along the side like they do. It's not just for being pretty. Yeah. I was like, oh, it actually serves like a purpose.
Fair enough. But no, it's actually super smart for them to do that, because now that I think of it, I've noticed, say I'm driving by a bunch of signs or something, you do look at your speed. You're like, oh, I feel like I'm flying.
Like, yeah, exactly. So there's a reason for that, which is good, because like that's, I think, one of the big things we're gonna have to address in the future is speed is becoming definitely one of those like big. I feel like that's the next like hot button topic for automotive is like, how do we control speed? Because that seems to be that's one behaviorally that's really hard to tackle with people. Mm-hmm. Even if you do those quick pullbacks, next thing you know, again, you're just like sitting there comfortable, and you look down and you're like, oh my God, I'm going faster than I intended to. Well,
everything's so smooth and so comfortable, and everything drives so nice now, you feel like you're going slower than you actually are. Yeah. Back in our old vehicles, you chugging along, bouncing up.
I feel everything in mine. And mine also is not going that fast. Like, I know when I'm, anything over 60 in my vehicle, it's like, oof, let's bring it down a little bit. Got a very tiny engine in there.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. If you could solve one major challenge today, what would it be?
Like one major automotive challenge, or
no, just like challenge in the company. So we talked about the goal. what would be the challenge in the company that you'd want to overcome?
What's a way to put this? Acknowledging that, like, I would love my biggest challenge is that I get, the small business. Everyone's like, oh, we want to help small business.
Yeah.
And what gets construed as small business. So for me, I really feel small, but then I see another company that gets placed in the same bucket, and I'm like, you're not small at all. You have over 1,000 employees, and you're still considered a small business. So I think for me, a hurdle would be, how can we, my pie in the sky, especially in like the federal space, is like creating something where can we recognize like maybe making different categories for like we're a micro business, like we're very small.
Yeah.
And so like recognizing that, because it's very difficult for us to compete even in like small business to small business, and that small business is like 3 times the size of multiple, like shoot, some of them I'm like, they're so big and they're still considered small, and I have to compete against them. It's like so it's like finding ways that we can still compete or, even work with those businesses. So I think that's kind of my biggest one right now is being recognized as still small, but like knowing, nothing against those other small businesses, but it's like understanding that we're operating in a much different category than them. It's not the same for us. We have a lot of challenge. There's only so many hours in a day. The two of us can do something, and I can't just like snap my fingers and like exponentially grow overnight. So it's like how to navigate that.
For sure. No, that's a great question, because that's a lot of companies just starting off. Like all companies start off with 1 or 2 people, and they slowly get their way through it and find their spot in the industry. But that's the hardest thing, is trying to navigate without the companies that you're working with wanting to sign the big guns that are gonna get the stuff done.
Yeah, and I get they can do things quick, but I also, the quality too. I'm like,
For sure.
It means a lot more to us than it might mean to them, and it's sort of like, how can I give kind of package that in a way that's understandable to them too.
And your knowledge in the industry, like you have so much knowledge working with all these different companies, because you guys are a smaller company. You have such a broad range of who you work with, and that comes to a benefit for the client that you're working for.
Oh yeah.
So I think
for sure.
That just gotta find a way to kind of express your knowledge and experience. I think that's the best way to do it. But no, for sure, it's a great challenge to overcome. And it's a tough one, because a lot of companies get stuck, right? Yeah,
for sure. I definitely want to continue to grow. And it doesn't need to even be size, right? So, like, I don't want to fall into the realm of, like, I think my business partner and I maybe have conflicting ideas about that sometimes. Like, he's a big dreamer, so he likes to think real big. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to just be, like, managing people all day, though.
Fair enough.
Like, the engineer in me is like, I still want to like interact and like build the things and work on the things. So also for us, it's like finding the balance between, I do want to hire more people to like help me do some certain things, but then also I don't want to lose scope of like doing the work. I don't want to just become the like CEO looking down on everyone. And I still want to be able to do some of the work. It's like, it's very important to me to be interactive still. I don't want to just get into the realm of only managing people or like, being the boss. Like, I feel bad for the people that I know. I'm like, you're the boss that has to just go to meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting. Like, that's not how I want my day to go.
Yeah.
I still like getting down into the dirt, I want to still work on the things. So
fair enough. No, that's totally understandable. That's with every business, right? Some people like the hands-on work and they're passionate about their company, and that's why they do it, right? So,
yeah.
Totally understand that. So looking back on your passionate journey and your experience-filled journey in the automotive space, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned, and what advice would you give to an entrepreneur entering the automotive space?
Be okay with losing, because it's gonna happen a lot. So like, you're gonna be told no more than you're told yes, and you have to start to learn how to get comfortable with that. And then just really relish it. You get to really relish in the yeses you get, and then you get to be, extra passionate about the projects you do get. Because that was a big lesson for us early on, is like, it hurts a bit to be told no, 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 and you'll really get down on yourself. But you just got to kind of keep trucking through, and then you will get the yes. And I'm still have that happen all the time. I get way more no's than yeses, and you just have to keep pushing forward with that. For sure.
For sure. No, that's great. That's great advice. And you guys have been at it for 10 years, so you guys have been trucking through the snow, getting everything going. So
yeah, and then just learn to pivot yourself, you don't want to, what we do is a very niche thing, even in our company, but that flexibility with what we did with the e-bikes, it's just like, start expanding like what you want to work on, and then understanding that you can grow and keep growing that space out and out and out. And then you always have that good niche that's your solid foundation, and then building from that. And then it will allow you to expand out into other aspects of that. And it's just fun to learn new things. Like it's just cool.
For sure. No, that's awesome. I have one final question for you.
Okay.
Where can people find you? What's your website, social media?
Oh, so www.kineticmetrics.com. We're also on LinkedIn. Just search for Kinetic Metrics. That's probably the most active page. We do have an Instagram. I don't use it very much. So I'd say LinkedIn, and finding me specifically on LinkedIn is another great way. I really like that website a lot. That's kind of my bread and butter. And then or just Emily.Reichard@kineticmetrics.com. I'm always open to shooting some emails.
That's perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the call today and joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, this has been great.
I appreciate you taking the time and share your insights and experiences with the listeners. You've provided me with a ton of knowledge, and I think the listeners are really going to enjoy it as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Every
day
is a fantastic new journey. So
for sure. No, that's a great quote. You got to quote yourself on that. But thank you so much for hopping on today.
Yeah, thank you.